President Joe Biden issuing an executive order yesterday and conducting a speech about more gun control. He's looking to take unilateral action on a host of things as you've got states across the country grappling with what to do about the New York Bruin decision from the U.S. Supreme Court that really makes the courts reevaluate future gun legislation and litigation when it comes to the Second Amendment. And again, let's just reiterate the Second Amendment right there after the First Amendment's right to free press and free speech and free assembly and free religion is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The full Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But here is President Joe Biden yesterday. By the way, good morning. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. Here's President Joe Biden yesterday, really passionate about what he wants to make sure happens, and just a little bit of a sample of what he had to say.
So let's finish the job. Ban assault weapons.
Ban them again. Do it now. Enough. Do something.
Do something big. So let's finish the job. Ban assault weapons.
Ban them again. Do it now. Enough. Do something.
Do something big.
So he, of course, wants, laws put in place across the country and maybe in Congress to ban what he calls assault weapons. And these so-called assault weapons really do wrap in commonly held weapons, like, for instance, the semi-automatic AR-15 or, certain handguns that hold more than 15 rounds in a magazine. And these are very common guns that are widely held by legal, law-abiding gun owners. And you've got cases all across the country as to exactly how these laws are going to be upheld or reversed. And including in Illinois, you've got a statewide gun ban that includes a gun registry that's in the courts and being attacked from multiple angles, including state court and federal court. So obviously we've been tracking that pretty close. But let's go ahead and hear some more of what President Joe Biden had to say of all of the various points he's looking to ultimately address with his executive orders. He did this, of course, kind of highlighting some of the mass shootings that have happened across the country. You've got the Highland Park mass shooting from July 4th of 2022, and the aftermath there, where you've got still some real fresh wounds from families that are dealing with that, and people who experienced that firsthand, and the 7 people who died and the dozens who were injured. So the president traveled to Southern California on Tuesday to address the families of a different mass shooting event. So again, here is President Biden laying out some of his priorities from the executive orders he signed to bring about more gun control in a unilateral fashion.
Today, I'm announcing another executive order that will accelerate and intensify this work to save more lives more quickly. First, this executive order helps keep firearms out of dangerous hands, as I continue to call on Congress to require background checks for all firearm sales. And in the meantime, my executive order directs my Attorney General to take every lawful action possible to move us as close as we can to universal background checks without new legislation. It's just common sense to check whether someone is a felon, a domestic abuser, before they buy a gun.
And again, that's just one clip of all of what the president had to say. And he laid out a fact sheet on the White House's website talking about all the things he wants to do. The executive order, the White House says, will keep more guns out of dangerous hands by increasing the effective use of red flag laws, strengthen efforts to hold the gun industry accountable, and accelerate law enforcement efforts to identify and apprehend the shooters, menacing our communities. The president's also encouraging the Federal Trade Commission to issue a public report analyzing how gun manufacturers market firearms to minors. And then also that, a variety of other issues, keeping guns out of dangerous hands, directing the president's cabinet to provide the public and policymakers with more information regarding federally licensed firearm dealers who violate the law, additional steps to make communities safer and impact gun violence, and a variety of other things. So the president's looking to curb gun violence. And I'm curious if there's going to be efforts to maybe increase law enforcement in urban areas where you see a lot of gun violence, a lot of mass shootings that are happening, not with AR-15s, but with handguns in the hands of likely people who are recidivists who, shouldn't be on the streets in the first place, or may have gotten arrested for previous gun crimes but haven't been held accountable, and is instead of focusing on what people have access to, should we instead focus on the criminality and going after those individuals who commit crimes. So the president's urging for, again, more bigger and better gun control measures. Here he is just one last time reiterating how he wants to see more assault weapons bans.
So let's finish the job. Ban assault weapons. Ban them again. Do it now. Enough. Do something. Do something big.
Well, in Illinois, we have that, and it's being challenged. And in other states, they have it, and it's being challenged. Governor J.B. Pritzker earlier this week talking about how, people who don't like his politics are just simply going to court to deal with it.
Enough. Do something. Do something big.
To take something to court to try to have it overturned, even though they are wrong when they say it's unconstitutional. As you know, this is the law, at least talking about the assault weapons ban, it's the law in 8 other states. Illinois is simply the 9th, and we're trying to protect people. It doesn't protect people everywhere all the time from firearms, but it does protect a percentage of people, and I think we'll do something to keep the people of Illinois safe. And I think the Supreme Court is going to give it a fair hearing, but I can tell you that all the lawyers and people who are involved in crafting the legislation feel confident that it'll come out the right way.
So he's talking about the Illinois Supreme Court there. The governor is confident that the Illinois Supreme Court will give it a fair hearing, despite 2 of the justices having received $1 million each from the governor. But he says they'll give it a fair hearing, and, he started giving percentages about, he believes a certain percentage of people are going to be kept safe because of the law. Well, if you look at the recent U.S. Supreme Court's precedent that was set last year in the New York v. Bruin case, you've got the Supreme Court saying that's not the right standard to use. You can't balance individuals' rights with the idea that a law restricting rights is going to keep people safe. So that balancing approach is not legit, and that is something federal courts are taking a closer look at. We've seen federal courts in other states use that decision to essentially say red flag laws are a violation of the Second Amendment, and even the efforts of government to prohibit cannabis users from accessing their Second Amendment rights. We've seen that challenged based off the New York v. Bruin case. So, while the governor's confident the Illinois Supreme Court may give a fair hearing, he says, and rule in his favor, what is the U.S. Supreme Court going to say? Because you've got Illinois' gun ban being challenged, not just at the state level. You've got it being challenged at the federal level, and those cases obviously are going to come together. All right, let's take a quick call here at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You are on WMAY. What's up?
Good morning. Good morning. Where are his receipts on these statements about percentages of people being saved by this? Like, where's the proof that the studies, all this other stuff that is going to prove that having this happen saves lives? Like, what are the results from these other 8 states that have these things in place? Do they have 0 gun deaths? Do they have testimonials from people saying this law has saved my life over and over and over again? Like, those receipts don't exist.
Well, and there's some people who will say, even if they did produce those receipts, you can't negate a constitutional fundamental right just by slapping percentages on a chart somewhere and saying, see, this is why we need to limit your rights.
But I'm confident enough to say, show me the receipts, because I don't believe that they exist. You show me those receipts, and I still disagree with, taking away the Second Amendment rights, but I don't think there's enough proof anywhere, because as long as we live in a state with Chicago, we're going to have mass shootings every single weekend, and they won't talk about those.
Yeah, and again, it's mass shootings do happen on the regular in Chicago. It's just not the high-profile mass shootings at a parade or something from a kid from a wealthy family who went the wrong direction and got his hands on firearms and so on. Hey, I appreciate the call. Take one more. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Morning, Greg.
Hey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the last caller, he hit the point right at the end. Wait till the weather warms up. Chicago's going to negate everything that Pritzker has for an argument. I just wonder if they're going to release those records, or someone like you could look into those violent crime gun statistics out of Chicago and say, you know what, it's increased or nothing's changed.
Well, Chicago police keep those stats, but there's also an organization called Hey Jackass, I think, that does a pretty detailed deep dive, an independent deep dive into those crime stats. We'll have to watch and see if with this law enacted, if it's indeed stemming any of that violence. I appreciate the calls. I got to take a break. It is Springfield's Morning News on WM.